right, we're here. Got myself, Martin, Liberty VIP. Alan here, Liberty VIP prospect. Roger over here. He has this wonderful machine behind us, this white beast back here. You'll be seeing more of that at a later date. We got pictures. We did a whole photo shoot. It's gonna be all the internet after this shit. You know, we'll be getting it together. Yeah, we're here just to discuss the story behind Roger himself, a little background on Alan too, myself. What ties us all together is cars, specifically VIP style cars, luxury cars, and sort of like gangster Japanese fashion, so to speak, for people who aren't really familiar with it. And the story behind Roger's acquisition of this car and how he made it his own and all that stuff. You know, and when I say Liberty prospect, that means people who have a common interest, common understanding what it is to be into these cars and sort of a family aspect, not just here for one and done and just kind of just be like, okay, I like cars, let me just hang with these guys, we have like minds. I actually understand that it's about building ourselves, supporting ourselves, vibing together as people, and going to shows and building the culture and all that stuff. So you know, in order to be a prospect, you have to be. That's actually a very well detailed guidelines, which half the stuff, honestly, I don't remember. So I'm not gonna even bother trying to go through it. But the gist of it is basically someone has to sponsor you to be part of Liberty. There's a period of time where someone has to understand you, your car, your passion, and you fit the ideals that we have. And you know, some may think it's a little bit too in depth and maybe too serious, but you know, when you're at the top of the food chain, you gotta get the vultures off. We gotta make sure everything's 100% for us in the future, because we're not here to be here for a minute. We're here to be here forever, have this culture perpetuate. So you have to be sponsored. This is my sponsor here, and I feel like I acquired this gentleman here as he's recently inducted as a Liberty member, and he might have thought it would have been a default just by acquiring this car, because this car originally was owned by a Liberty VIP member who has passed, but he acquired it with the plate with it, but he personally had to earn that. And I respect that process. You might have felt a little bit off about that, but I respect the fact that had to happen, because you can't just be a part of this by association. You have to put in the work and show that this is what you're about for the long term. And with that, the fact that you're prospecting, the fact that you're a member now, I honestly don't remember how the first time you and I met. Alan and I are from the streets, being in cars, we know each other. We've actually been in a whole video of us and how we met together on my page of Kitchen Table Talk. I'll link this episode at some point where we talk our personal people, and Roger was there also with us. But I don't remember when I first met you personally. I don't remember. Do you remember that? I don't remember.
In face to face, or
yeah, face to face.
Face to face was at that Import Evolution show.
Really, it was.
That was the actual show where we actually met.
Yeah, awesome. So there was an Import Evolution show. Import Evolution is it's actually the whole idea of it is kind of actually like Liberty VIP. It's people who have like minds. It's a family aspect that's born from people who really are into this shit and who believe this stuff, and do a series of shows in now in Florida and in Boston. It's a brand too, and pardon me. And they usually have the show in Worcester, but they did it downtown. And at that point, Liberty had Roger had just acquired the vehicle not too long ago. Literally just like
I think it was earlier that year.
And you just put it together and like kind of just brought it to the show, like, oh shit, because if you don't know this car in its current state, it was silver before, and it was well before he owned it, and it sat forever, and we brought it there, and it was very, very groundbreaking when it came out, and it wasn't really out for long because, like I said before, the owner had passed and it sat for a while. So without further ado, let's get into how you got into cars. To take it backtrack, how you got into cars in the first place, and then we'll get into how the previous owner BK and how that happened.
So the way I got into cars was my dad and my uncles are very, very big car enthusiasts, bike enthusiasts. They've been building it since they were little. They used to run with Camaros, Porsches, anything you could think of. They were building it and doing some kind of thing what we're doing now of building cars that are before time should happen back then. Like they used to have in-dash radios before that was even a thing, or crazy systems before they were a big thing.
That's cool.
So that's how I got into them.
Yeah, because you have a very extensive car audio backup, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I used to have a crazy truck with 2 18s and 18 speakers in it that would shake the ground with it when I was rolling.
So you weren't necessarily, not even necessarily, you weren't even into these types of vehicles whatsoever prior, right? It was, as an automotive enthusiast, you probably
I was into,
but it wasn't your thing.
Cars, but not this type of car.
Yeah.
Like a luxury car of, a Japanese style.
Yeah.
I was definitely not into. I was more into the racers. Let's race, let's get them as fast as we can go, and that style, but not to this aspect of them.
And you know what? There's no problem with that, because even though I'm into it, I know Ellen too is into it, but like we still drive fast for no reason, like idiots, because there's no need to be doing this shit in the cars we have. But we just old habits we can't break. We're stupid as hell. We just like Rod is a little different. He's
I'm 4x4
We'll get into that. Okay, so that's your background, and what links you to Brendan Kennedy, right? How did that happen? Who was the previous owner of this car and the guy who had the vision of the car behind you?
So the way me and BK became was we used to work together at the Pine Hills in Plymouth. It was my senior year when I started working there, and I don't know, it was just something that clicked between me and him. We used to ride bikes together, so that started off the whole friendship was bike talk.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as we grew up more, you knew him for 3 years, this car became something that came into the conversation that he was building. And I remember him saying, well, I gotta take a trip up to New York or wherever it was to pay my dues for the car and, get it ready. And there was never actual footage of this car back then because he didn't do Facebook.
Yeah.
He didn't do MySpace. He didn't do any of those things. And I remember one day this machine came to my job and I was like, what the hell is that? He goes, that's my car. I was like, well, where has this been? He goes, oh, I've had it. He goes, I'm building other cars too, but I've had this car. And honest to God, I never once got inside the car, never saw it. I always said I would take the next ride, and there never was a next ride until I got a hold of the car myself.
Wow, that's powerful, because skipping ahead slightly, like the car was made, was debuted, was built out of state, and was brought to 2 shows, and he passed before he even saw it in person. So that was crazy about it. So people were going crazy, and the only place you would saw a little bit of the process of it in the previous state was on, as I recall, VIPstylecars.com, where people, were old heads now. Well, it's still active. I haven't logged in forever, but when all the OGs started before all this social media stuff, it was like threads, builds, talking. I only met him once too at Liberty Barbecue. He said going to New York, that's what he was doing, and hanging out with people because New York was like the epicenter of this kind of style going on the East Coast. It was always down south, West Coast, all that stuff. And, at that time I was trying to be down too, so I was going to barbecues and stuff like that. I don't even honestly remember when I got my Liberty plate, which signifies that you're down 100% in part of the family. I don't remember when, honestly, or how long it had, who really gave it to me, to tell you the truth. It's been a long time. Because I wasn't doing it. I think the reason why I didn't remember that is because I wasn't doing it for that reason anyways. It was just like a surprise, like, oh wow, like y'all actually want me part of what you're doing, because I never saw myself on that level, because the ideas, the creativity, the fit finish, the people, the way they were doing things, like the people who grew up around each other and spent around time with each other before they started getting into this. So like I always felt like an outcast. And it wasn't and a negative outcast. Like I'm always welcome, still am welcome, but like people are so very close knit. So when people want you part of this, there's a reason for it. We like you here, we like you around us, and the reason why I said is Brendan, he was for it. Like he wanted this shit out here. He wanted to perpetuate the culture. He wanted to see what's going on. He was talking with the founding members, dealing with them specifically, Aggie of Liberty VIP, and he was, he had his car, President, which you might hear before. It was this same car, same type of car, but built totally different. But this guy has crazy ideas and shit to do, but he wasn't ready, willing, and able to do it to his car at that particular time for whatever reasons. So him and BK were talking and doing conversations in the background about what could be done and all kind of ideas that he had in his mind, because Aggie has an amazing creative mind with design mind with certain things. And so that happens like this mashup and amalgamation of parts and things that are put together while being put together with Nate up in PA, who had Dreammakers Customs, who put this stuff together and literally made their dreams reality. His place was called Dreammakers Customs, which was aptly named because it was literally a figment of imagination to make this happen. And the way it's finished together, like before we started this, I was having a conversation. Every time I talked to Rogers about this car, he learned something new about it because, like we said, it wasn't his to begin with. And the way it was put together like it was designed like that, but no part of it was. Everything had to be put together a certain way. There's Benz parts, there's Jaguars parts, there's all kinds of stuff, and certain things you've done yourself, which made it your own, which is pretty incredible because you had tried to do some things, done repainting your own way, have your own scheme because it was silver before, and I want you to talk about why you chose to change it the way you changed it, because I felt when you said you were changing things about it, and I knew you didn't quite understand, and no fault of your own, the historical importance of this car to the culture. When you made the decision to start changing things now, you're talking about it, I was getting kind of worried because this is kind of like a museum piece and a memorial for the person who owned it. And I didn't want it to be changed from that. I want it to be a similar way. But I don't disagree with none of the stuff you've done to it, and it looks amazing.
Absolutely.
But I want to hear about what your idea is to do, the modifications you've done to it, and why, and the process, because this man has done the paint work and body work and modifications to it a lot of himself. So speak on that for a moment.
So the history behind where you see it now is BK always envisioned his car being candy apple green. And a lot of people know that's a hard color to pull off. That's a statement color.
Yeah, any candy is difficult.
And I wasn't ready to perform that task. So in ways to in his memory, he's Irish. So and his favorite color was green. So my thought was, I'll start with the center of the wheels. We'll do that green for him. And then as time went on, the paint was getting a little beat up at the silver stage. So I was like, well, let's move away from the silver. And I wanted to keep the green flow. So instead of, again, doing the candy apple green, I did the white paint with the green flakes in it to, keep his Irish theme going. And, I just ran with that. And so far, it's stuck with me for a while. At a point in time, I will be doing the candy apple green.
It's just, as you said, there's a learning curve to even attempting to do that.
Yeah.
you got to lay paint on many times on many different cars to be able to do that way, because it could either look like literally candy, or it could just look like you just pissed on it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people who do candy, but candy is they don't understand how many layers of paints and stains and color that's into that.
That's something I don't know if I will be doing myself. Plus, I have to have many test panels before I do it. But there will be a point in time this car will be to where he wanted it, candy apple green, and we're gonna run with that until it's my time.
So, and that's great. And like, what makes this so you had, like I said before, you talked about where you started, where you are right now. You're getting some hands-on making new modifications. But what made it so important for you to be determined to actually acquire this car? Because you went through a major process to even get it. And why was that important for you to do so? I know why it would be important for me. And Alan, I'm going to ask you why it would be important to have that hat. But I want to hear from the man's mouth himself of why it would be important to have this car be in circulation. And even around have you personally have it.
So why it was so important for me to have this car is because, you know, BK was a role model to me. I knew so many dreams and aspirations of him from the short time that I knew him. You know, everything that he wanted to be a part of, I wanted to be a part with him because, you know, he was just a great person to look up to. And after he crashed, after he passed, it was definitely a hard time dealing with a lot of things. His family was going through a lot of things, obviously, between the car, you know, just his death being one of them. And so I wanted to make an impact for the family and keep them in touch with myself. So when he passed in 2011, the car disappeared. It literally disappeared. I tried to track it down myself. I knew of where the car was, but I had no real knowledge of it. So there was a point in time that I would drive around to areas where I knew he lived to see if I could find the car, if anybody he heard from, because his brother fell off the map. I knew his mother, but I didn't know her personally like that to reach out to her. I would talk to his old friends. And then one day I drove to his old house where I saw the car after it came back from Nate's shop, and my mouth dropped. This car was sitting in at least a 2-foot puddle. Water was over the center caps, and I just didn't know what to do. I was helpless. The car sat from 2011 to 2014, and then it moved back to where he used to live because his brother brought it down to where BK used to live, and the car sat there for another year and a half. And I got in contact with his mom, and I said, I introduced myself to her and said, I would like to continue BK's dream and, you know, continue what he had in his legacy of the car. And she gave me her blessings and everything, gave me the keys, but didn't know what the title was to the car.
Gotcha.
And so it was right before I was going on a vacation where I figured out what airbags were. Had no clue what they were. Didn't know how they worked. It was me and my buddy Sean who...
Why? Because the car was immovable because it was aired out, right?
It was aired out, and I had no idea how to get them to turn on. So we got the car started, but you could hear vibrations, but I didn't know what it was, and I had the remote in my hand. I'm like, well, what the hell do I do with this? I didn't know which way to hold it. And I remember I could click, and you could hear it clicking. I'm like, I don't know. And so after we just sat there and let the car run, the car shot up in the air. I was like, oh crap, we gotta go. And where the car was sitting, the landlord was saying, he goes, I'm glad you took this car out of here because I was getting ready to call the tow yard and have them come drag it out of here. And I was like, well, I'm sure as hell glad you didn't do that. And the minute that car shot out of the driveway, you saw the old man out there dusting the ground off from where the car sat for so long. And I remember he was in front of me. I'm like, dude, we gotta get this thing to my house right now. It was, tires were low. Everyone says don't run a car if it's been sitting for so long because of the fluids. And I was like, well, I have no choice. So we drove that from his old apartment to my parents' house. And that's where it all started. That's where, you know, I could figure out which way the buttons worked and everything. And I was going on vacation the next day. And so that's when I believe I did some research. I found the Liberty VIP page. And that's where I introduced myself and got this whole thing started. And that's how I met Martin. I met Aggie. I met a lot of the guys that, you know, that weren't from around us, but I met them through that. And I got a lot of good feedback, got a lot of bad feedback. But, you know, I didn't care at the time, you know. I got my man's dream off the ground again. And, you know, I was working on how to, you know, acquire the car legally. So I could continue the dream without any problems.
Of course, because it's like driving on a fucking spaceship. So you can't just be dropboxing that shit around because it doesn't look like anything. Even if you know these Infinities, it doesn't look like anything you've seen before. So it's like, so you kind of just like, all right, well, let me just get this together because like you're gonna get mad attention because it doesn't look like anything else. And the build was, like you said, and the build was in this current state, not in the paint, but the actual bodywork and the concept being done. It was like 9 years ago, right? 10, 9?
Going on 10 years.
10 years. So this is ahead of its time now, and it was built 10 years ago. So I say that in saying, you 10 years ago, Alan, were not into this style at all, but I've sucked you into it completely.
Absolutely.
And it's ruined your life. And I'm sorry. But what is your first experience in seeing this car, not in person and in person? What made you feel was the experience of having that?
The first time I seen it in a blur. Like it drove by. I was delivering parts in Plymouth. And I'm looking down at my clipboard and someone just told me like, look up. And I look up and I see it just going by. I'm like, what is that? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So after that, I never saw the car again until, I seen it in pictures. But then first time seeing it in person was when Roger got it and he brought it to Import Evolution.
And I'm doing this to say that to a lot of people, this is like a mythical creature. No one's actually really seen the whole lot. Even now, you brought it to shows, but it's still very elusive. It doesn't exist in real life to a lot of people.
Matter of fact, someone just came on Instagram and said, I thought that car disappeared.
Exactly.
Just
and
a
it
couple
did,
days ago.
and the thing is, it did disappear. That's the thing. And now it's back. And that's why this is historically significant to actually put this out here, that this is around, and tell people this story because, like I said, I talk to you every time I see it. We don't see each other often. Every time I see it, I tell you something new about the process, the build, the background you didn't know about because you didn't put this thing together initially, and people just don't know about this car. In actuality, they knew of it, but don't know the actual car that actually exists in real life. Because BK was just a fucking beast in terms of getting shit together, ideas with Aggie and Nate. Just that trifecta of people were just insane about how they put together the conceptually to reality at that time. And none of this shit was being done before. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
And I think what I would love to do, and I don't want to do this entirely myself, I'm coming up with this idea right now that I'm talking about it, is talk to the people face to face or some type of thing who can explain what's been done to the car and how, maybe Nate, maybe Aggie, just have that so people can actually have a basis of that because a lot of this shit hasn't been done before. And people don't understand that. And I understand what I've been told, but this stuff I don't understand because I didn't build it either. I just know from being in conversation with people. Because BK, like, I give you a hard time because, Al and I are static boys. We like to drive low all the time. But I'll give you a hard time because you're loving the old air setup, which is like freaking 10 years old. That I know for a fact that BK was like, this is garbage. You're like, I love this shit. I'm like, this is garbage. It's super garbage. But but at the same time, it was garbage because the options available at the time. This particular car, without geeking out too much, has a interesting front suspension setup where the way the wheel bolts into the car and the way the shock is all one piece. So it's difficult to switch that whole setup for a completely different setup. So you kind of just have to put it together a certain way. And he literally had some airbags or some stock shit and welded it together, and it was just what was available. Now they make full replacement pieces. You're on an airbag coilover setup, which is gorgeous. It works well for you, but it's designed to be driven at, as Alan and I would say, appropriate ride heights where the car doesn't have a fistful of arm wheel gap, and which is what you're not used to. But it's a learning process, and but it's still an air ride. It still does its thing, but the adjustment levels are different. But it drives totally different. You can actually, it's more rigid. You can actually whip it properly. It does what it's supposed to do. But plus, like I said, it's like a museum piece. It's not like it's like a trailer car, so it's perfectly fine that you'd want to keep it as pristine as possible because that's the point. Like if I had the car, I'm a static person. If I had the car be on air too, I wouldn't want to tear it up. But now you actually have the option to really ride the way you were supposed to ride and not just have all the way up or all the way down in the setting, which If you've ever seen this car driving around, it was always all the way up.
4x4 mode.
And you know, us VIP guys just give people a hard time about riding. It's about how the car looks at all times. I'm not against hair. I just like to be done a particular way. But now, you know, it's like you learn the air process, you learn the suspension process, you learn the body process. You already an interior car already person. You have the whole trunk set up, fish tank, all kind of stuff. There's pictures out there we'll put out. And it's just insane to see what you've done with your personal pieces, personal design cues to it, and maintain it the way that it's been so far. And I think it's impressive, and it's a time capsule. You have your plans for the future with the car, and I appreciate those as well. You're doing some custom things, some mashup things, and you're learning it's more difficult than one thinks.
It is. It's very, very difficult to build something that you have no idea what you're doing. I mean, the whole concept was just to make sure it was never just about me for this car. It was always to keep him in spirit. You'll never see it and not have the RIP BK on the back. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you go in my trunk, I mean, I don't think there's one photo of me in there. It's all him, family, mm-hmm. his friends. Something has to do with him is in that photo at all times. Mm-hmm. I mean, even to my starlights in the interior mm-hmm. has BK's name engraved into it. Everything is literally revolved around him, and I'm just the person who can drive it.
That's deep. That's the incredible part of the story. That story and the fact you're dedicated that way, we had to see that as Liberty people and people with family, and I think you've proven that 100%. That you're dedicated to continuing this the best way possible. Because, you know, we're worried. We didn't want some new kid coming in and just do it for the clout. Because, like, you know, and again, I don't fault you for this. I've said it before. But, like, you don't even know what you got yourself into. You don't know shit about that car. You don't know what's been done to it or the extent of it. You just literally acquired it. And it's just one of those things where everything about it is a learning process. And I'm glad you got it in a functional state where you can actually, you know, spend the fun part. Mess around with stuff and modding as opposed to just making it function.
Yeah. So
he said it sat in a pile of water forever. Like, that could have been a disaster. You could have been spending the next 3 years just trying to get it to run.
I mean, you saw the wheels back then at that import show. Mm-hmm. Those wheels were rusted. And some guy came up to me and said, "Man, is that how you do them?" I was like, "No." He said, "That's the way down in Florida. Everybody loves rusted wheels down there." I'm like, "Bro, you're crazy." I said, "It'll never catch me like this." I had 2 different wheels on the car.
Yeah.
I had the fronts different from the backs. It was a mess back then.
It was a mess.
I think I had 1 polished wheel back then too.
Yeah, it was a mess, but at the same time, it's like, you know, you acquired it a certain way, and none of it was planning. You just put it together just to represent, and it was like, it's just interesting to watch because so many people have, again, only heard and seen about the car, just not in reality. When they see it, they're like, wait a minute. And now it's a triple take because it's a different color now. And it doesn't even look like the same car per se unless you really know what you're looking for. And like, again, BK never saw it. I saw it myself. It debuted in like one of the black 7. And then I saw it slightly after that. Like,
no, black 3. Because there's a sticker residue on the window in the windshield still. Or black 3.
And then after that, I saw it in person. I think that show happened after First Class Fitment. I think it was one of the earlier shows, and I saw it in person because it was just BK never was able to pick it up.
That's the last show it was at.
Yeah, BK was never able to pick it up, so Nate just like trailed it around because he was just for it. And it was just there, and people were just like, "Oh my God, what the fuck?" What is like? He didn't know what it is. People still don't know what it is. It's crazy. It's crazy to see that.
The names this car gets. Someone said, "Is this a Jaguar?" Or someone said, "Is this a Kia? What kind of Kia is that?" Because I've never seen that before. Someone said, "Is it a Honda?" I'm like, "Oh my goodness."
Just the modifications you've done with the headlights, you can see it behind it, and all the stuff you've done this past year. The colors, the color change itself, the color changing headlights, it just brought it to a whole new level of what the hell is this thing? Because you don't know what the hell it is. You can show a picture of this car in stock or what it is today, and like, what the hell is going on? And I think that just in itself is incredible. The fact that you're able to keep the legacy on. I mean, I remember the last time only time I saw BK to myself is at the Liberty Barbecue that we were talking about. And he was a chef by trade, and I cook all the time.
Yeah, he is.
And he just had some regular burger. He bought a whole cooler full of meat. And this is the story I just talked off the top of my head. Full cooler full of meat. You're just cooking stuff like assembly line cooking. And part of me took that on, honestly, because several years later, Liberty, the Black Car Show, the barbecue at Staten Island, the same location, I did the same thing. I brought all the meats. I'm cooking. I'm doing that thing. I'm being the chef for the day. Me and my friend, a couple people helping. I'm cooking for like 50 people, like by myself, and it was just. I felt the vibes. You know what I'm saying? Because he was doing that himself.
Oh, that's what his passion was. He wanted to open up a restaurant for him and his brother back then, so they could run it. And I mean, that's what they did. That was their bond. Cars weren't their bond. It was cooking for the family, or cooking in general.
Yeah, and it's crazy to see the parallels. I cook every day. I have cooking shows that I do. I have a kitchen table talk that I do. I'm into the car stuff. I cook for everyone around me. I'm doing that at that barbecue. I'm taking what he was doing. It's hands down. I pulled you into the culture entirely. Matter of fact, how do you feel about the culture? How it's going right now? Your involvement in it, and how you feel like people are handling this type of stuff in 2019, 2020. Like, what do you feel about how people should be doing too much, too little? Let's talk about the culture very briefly before we stop, because you're like both of you guys are newcomers, so I'd like to hear kind of how you think this is going with it. United States, Japan, all that.
Me personally, I'm taking the culture like really slowly. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, to me, like, this is wild. Like, it's a level to it. You know what I'm saying? And I don't see myself going there right now, because I personally love like stock body and stuff like that. But I don't know. I feel like different strokes for different folks. You know what I'm saying?
You get the people in Japan where they just literally have basically a stock body car and just slam the living shit out of it. They're like scrape cars and like run stupid amounts of camber. And there's a culture behind that. They literally ruin their cars and don't care. But you have to remember that a lot of those people out there, those cars are cheap. People don't drive luxury cars like that in like Japan, because it's not that kind of culture where there's a lot of parking and places to go. They drive little cars that go everywhere. So these cars like Q45s like that, they're like $2,000. So they just get a whole bunch of stuff, put it together, just enjoy it, and scrape the crap out of it, and they do inspections like every 2 years.
Yeah.
So you can just ruin the car for 2 years and just junk it, and they just don't. It's cool. Then there's people who literally do everything you've done and do the same thing, air or static, and like you'll see they'll literally cut the entire. It's a unibody car. They'll cut the entire floor out of it, raise the floor, raise the engine, and just have that whole car. Just literally just take like the lower 20% of the car, delete that, lift it up, and then put it back together so they can drive that low. It's insane. And there's people who just make, show cars like this and just drive it around all pretty and have like 65 TVs in it and all kinds of stuff, which is just like vehicular art, if you ask me. And there's people who just drive, which my car is sort of in the middle, where I have the camera, but it's not extreme. It's still a driver. It's not a show car at all. Have a wide body, and just like to driver's car, driver's enthusiast car who's into the culture. So there's different levels to this shit, and I don't think any of them are even wrong. But it all depends on, what you're doing with your budget. It's the whole thing behind it, honestly, is kind of flexing how much money you spend and what you do. It's based on that, to tell you the truth. It's about spending money, having fancy VIP stuff. Just the look, the gangster Japanese look. It's not for the faint of heart of the people who are short money. And it's not for everyone. And the culture is with it. People just, a lot of this stuff's getting too easy to do, and it's getting diluted. And something like this that brings it back to the core culture of doing something unique is very nice to see. It's refreshing to show what you can do. Because this is extreme in terms of modifications. But in actuality, aside from a couple things, you could technically still drive it every day. You know what I mean? It's not an extreme car where like you have to like bring an entire set of plywood just to drive the car around to get anywhere. Because it was some extreme shit, you know what I mean? But it's just a matter of other cultures and other areas being 10 steps beyond what we're doing and having to just catch up. And that's what this was about. And it's great. And unless anyone else has anything to say, I think I've rambled enough. I could talk all day about it, but I don't want to bore anyone. Anything else have anything to say? I appreciate Alan and his and to be able to have this venue, to have this here. I think it was important to have a visual of what was going on as opposed to talking about something in theory. I want people to see what's actually going on. If you guys want more pictures and videos, they'll be out there of the vehicle. I want to thank Roger for being around to have this conversation, to spread the story and have people really see what this is really all about, because it's bigger than us. I'm glad to be blessed to be here on the earth, stay safe, and be allowed to tell you all this story and put it on the internet, the ethos. Anything else? We're good?
Yeah, I want to commend Roger for not giving up and actually acquiring the car and doing research to find Liberty VIP page and introduce yourself and all that. And I think you've done a great job.
Appreciate that.
With the
Yeah, because we weren't initially having it. We weren't for it at all. We're like, oh, this guy's gonna just come in and do all kinds of shit, and we weren't having it because we knew more than you at that point what the car meant to the community. So it wasn't like we have to get you up to speed to figure out what is really good about it before we say, okay, let's give this dude a pass to let him make it his own. Like, we can't just have you come in and be like the newcomer and be like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm cool now, because that was not gonna happen. And you have worked through the trials and tribulations. I'm glad you've had the difficulties you've had, because it made you a better person and made you more talented, and it made you appreciate everything that is or isn't with the vehicle.
Oh yeah, no,
And there's honestly more isn'ts, because the reason why I say more isn'ts because the car was technically complete when you got it, exterior wise. You just had to fix it. So the style of it was already there. It was already built. So it's just a matter of fixing it wasn't there and acquiring that level of skills to do it yourself, which is more than I would have done. So I commend you on that. Because you did it yourself. It's not like, because I don't build my cars myself, and most people don't. You didn't build this car yourself, you remade it yourself. And that's big, because you can't say you built the car, you acquired the guts of it entirely with nothing done of yours, but you made it yourself by doing it yourself, which is just as good.
Yeah.
Just as good. And most people wouldn't do that, because I wouldn't fucking touch that thing. No possible way, because it's custom shit that's done in a car, which is one-off. You know what I mean?
And there's been a lot of fixing and a lot of trials and tribulations.
You don't know how that's put together. You know, you didn't do it, so it's like it's not like you're getting a fresh new car and be like, I'm gonna paint it because it's whatever. Like this, almost every aspect of this car is done custom, except for like the roof, the hood, and
I'm sure the hood was touching one way or another.
I don't even know, and maybe the doors. But everything else.
No, the doors are the factory. Those are factory doors.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident on those.
Yeah.
But everything else has been touched in another way.
Some type of way, and it's just crazy. It's just crazy to see that. And you decided to go in ambitiously and be like, nah, I'm gonna take this thing apart. I wouldn't have done that. I'd have been like, cool, because the paint was actually nice when you got it. I was like, you gonna repaint this shit? I'm like, why?
No, it was falling apart. It was falling apart bad.
Yeah, to me it looked good. Maybe I wasn't in the right light.
I think you missed a couple.
Yeah, you definitely missed a couple, because it was fading, and I remember one day a shingle, I don't know where it came from, came right across the roof and scratched the whole roof.
So you're like, oh fuck, I gotta do it again.
Yeah, and painting the first time, oh my god, that was a nightmare.
Yeah, personally, I didn't want you to change anything on that car. I
didn't.
I just wanted you to repaint it the same color and just. But I'm not mad at you.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm definitely not mad at you.
And this is just honestly, this is like, even though this is like version 3 for you, this is like version 1.
Absolutely.
Because it wasn't together in the appropriate way until this point.
And nobody knows, I still keep in contact with BK's mom. And she approves of everything that's been done.
Good, man.
And I send it every time something gets updated. I send it to his brother and get the approval for him as well.
Good, man.
And I keep his whole family in the loop. And you know,
Absolutely.
whenever they have family barbecues, they ask me to come on out, bring the car by, and let them check it out. And you know, I got the Xbox in the back, so if anybody wants to play games, we can play movies, whatever people want.
Car show season is going to be obviously very abbreviated with all the shit's going on, but we're going to keep this, because things like this with the crew and stuff like that, and do other photo shoots and videos and pictures and stuff like that. It's just going to get out there. But in a way, it's kind of good that things are slow down because we can take our time. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
The car is not going to get lost in the seas of Rocket Bunny kits and fender flares. You know what I mean?
And that's what's
Not that, and again, I'm not a hater. I don't mind Rocket Bunny and fender flares, but 85% of the cars shouldn't have that.
And a lot of people do that, or they're copying everything
Yeah.
that's going on. There's a lot of clout chasers too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
A
It
lot
just
of them.
builds shit for a scene to keep it moving, and BK was never about that. And the fact that you're doing the same vision is just speaks volumes on your character, understanding of the culture, and a culture which you were never involved in. That's
Never.
what I'm saying.
I probably, if I never knew him, probably still wouldn't be in it.
It's
Probably
not.
still be doing my
it's-
systems.
It's because it's just systems is one thing. Because at least with systems and audio stuff, you can take it out, and put it on the car, and rebuild it if you want to.
Not with this thing.
But this shit, nah. Everything you can't even sell shit off this car. You could this particular car because it's BK's car. That's what you can sell. You can't even sell shit off this car. It's all custom. It's like a niche market for what people might want to get. You know what I mean? You have to want this wide body fender with the Benz vents in it, and the freaking custom made bumper to even. That's a niche market.
And you ain't finding none of them.
Yeah, it's all just a waste of money.
Even if I break
Absolutely.
something, it's hard to even find that too.
It's all this gigantic waste of money. You have to be
man.
into it to actually want to do it. It's not something you can do. You cannot do this with any amount of money with not understanding of the culture and people who understand how to do things. It's not about the money. It's about the money to start and finish, but the money does not get the full product. If there was anything to understand about the culture, about that. A lot of people just buy Phantoms, Bentleys, Porsches, and put $100,000 into them, but there's all kind of shit you could just take off the car. The guts and bones of this car, it's all part of the car. So, it's part of the culture. So, anyways, I'm gonna stop rambling. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for having everyone.
Peace
Appreciate
out.
it.